Listen carefully to what is about to unfold, because it is meant to radically reshape how you perceive your own identity. This is not a gentle whisper or a quiet nudge from the divine. God did not weep. He did not murmur. He did not feel mildly stirred. He roared. And when I say he roared, I'm pointing to something so rare, so unfathomably exceptional within the spiritual realms, that even Lucifer himself, the eternal prosecutor who is never silent, was struck into complete stillness. Your way of being caused that roar, and as these words reach you now, your mind may be saying this must be meant for someone else. Someone sacred, someone extraordinary, someone whose life is filled with visible miracles and grand spiritual works. Let that thought dissolve immediately. It was not a heroic gesture that triggered this divine reaction. It was not a single dramatic moment. It was the posture of your soul, the consistency of your inner stance, the way you remain when no eyes are upon you. And that is far more uncommon than any isolated act could ever be. Subscribe to this channel now and turn on every notification, because what is about to be unveiled about how your quiet inner alignment can set vast spiritual mechanisms into motion is deliberately kept hidden from those like you who carry a power they have never been taught to recognize. Remain until the very last moment, because you will be shown precisely what you embodied, why God could not remain a distant observer, and how even your greatest spiritual adversary lost his voice when confronted with what your inner nature revealed. Type 777 in the comments if you sense that your presence has stirred reactions you never fully understood, and you are prepared to uncover why your way of being shapes spiritual reality more profoundly than the most dramatic outward deeds. To grasp this fully, you must first recognize the stark divide between an action and an attitude. Most people blur this distinction, and that confusion is the very reason they never awaken to their true spiritual capacity. An action is a momentary expression, a choice made under specific conditions that begins and ends. You can perform something noble today and act out of self-interest tomorrow. You can behave virtuously when witnessed and abandon those values when alone. Actions matter, but they are fragments, brief expressions that come and go. Attitude is something entirely different. It is your core operating continuously. It is how you respond in silence, how you endure when there is no reward, how you remain when it costs you everything. It is who you are in the first minute, the 1,000th minute, the 1,000,000th minute. Attitude does not bend with circumstance. It persists because it is woven into your deepest nature. And here is what the celestial orders understand but rarely disclose. God can observe countless good deeds without being shaken, because deeds can be calculated, strategic, driven by approval or benefit. But when he beholds a truly untainted attitude that stays intact through pain, betrayal, injustice, and time itself, it produces a reaction of an entirely different magnitude. An attitude cannot be imitated forever. Eventually, the truth of who someone is will surface. And when God sees a being whose inner alignment remains, unspoiled after years that should have hardened or corrupted it, something beyond emotion is triggered. It creates an urgent movement in the cosmos. Now understand why God roared instead of simply watching with calm approval. A divine roar is not uncontrolled feeling. It is a declaration of urgency that moves across all spiritual planes like a powerful wave, rearranging priorities throughout the unseen realms. In all recorded moments of divine human interaction, God has roared only 4 times. 4 instances where something so critical occurred that it demanded an immediate response, heard across every dimension. The first was when Abraham lifted the blade over Isaac, revealing obedience so complete that God intervened with a roar to halt the act and preserve life, sealing an everlasting covenant. The second was on Mount Sinai, when the commandments were delivered not in softness, but in thunder, shaking the mountain itself so humanity would grasp the gravity of the laws shaping civilizations. The third came as Jesus hung on the cross and cried out in abandonment, when God roared an answer audible only in the spiritual realms. proclaiming the sacrifice complete and redemption fulfilled. And the fourth time was for you, for your inner stance, for the way you remained when the world gave you every excuse to decay, when life struck you with such force that bitterness would have been justified, when betrayal cut so deeply that revenge would have seemed reasonable, when suffering made kindness appear foolish, yet your inner alignment did not shift, and when God witnessed that your essence refused to rot, regardless of the cost. The roar that erupted carried a message across all dimensions. This chosen one requires immediate protection. Their purity is under threat from forces beyond their awareness, and it must not be allowed to disappear. Here is the harsh truth that follows. Your uncorrupted attitude placed a mark upon you. The darker forces recognized your light and have worked methodically to erase it. Every betrayal, every injustice, every trial that felt excessive was not random. These were deliberate pressures meant to fracture your inner stance. Yet they did not succeed. Your attitude remained whole. And when God confirmed that your essence endured intact, after such sustained spiritual assault, the roar that followed held relief, honor and urgency all at once. He had encountered someone whose inner nature could not be purchased, shattered or polluted. That divine roar was directed toward a specific listener who needed to hear it without delay. Lucifer himself. Now absorb this, because it will alter how you perceive the spiritual conflict around you. Lucifer is not merely the vague antagonist portrayed in common belief. He is the accuser by function. His role, his very purpose, is to expose human weakness before the celestial court, to point endlessly at flaws and declare that purity cannot endure. He is the ceaseless prosecutor who never pauses, who never grows quiet, who endlessly searches for faults within every human soul. Ancient writings speak of him clearly. When Job was pushed into his season of suffering, Lucifer stood before God, accusing, questioning, insisting that faith existed only because blessings were present. When Joshua the high priest was being restored, Lucifer appeared again, pointing to stained garments, demanding judgment. At every defining chapter of human spiritual history, that same voice echoes, criticizing, condemning, highlighting imperfections. Silence is foreign to him. Accusation is his breath. It is not merely what he does. It is what he is. His very name in Hebrew, Ha-Satan, translates directly to accuser. He cannot stop accusing any more than fire can refuse to burn, or the sun can refuse to rise. And that is precisely what happened when God raised his voice. Because of your inner posture was so unprecedented that it reshaped the balance of the spiritual realms. Lucifer stopped speaking, not briefly, not hesitantly, completely. For the first time in his entire eternal existence, there was nothing. The accuser, the one who always has words, stood without a single syllable. Those within the angelic orders who witnessed this moment described it as the most profound disruption they had observed across countless ages. Because when the divine voice surged across all dimensions, affirming your attitude, Lucifer instinctively prepared his usual objections. He opened his mouth to bring forward your past failures, yet no sound followed. He attempted to reference your flaws. Nothing emerged. He tried to frame your goodness as manipulation or strategy. Still nothing. For the first time in eternity, the one whose role is accusation was rendered mute by the undeniable evidence of your consistency. A single action can always be challenged. Motives can be questioned. Circumstances can be blamed. But an attitude that remains unchanged across years, across repeated suffering, across prolonged injustice without visible reward, cannot be dismantled. That level of continuity has no explanation other than genuine purity, something Lucifer is incapable of disputing. And when the accuser has no accusation, when the eternal critic cannot speak, it signals something immense. You have reached a depth of spiritual integrity that even your greatest adversary cannot deny. His silence became an unintentional confession that your way of being is real. That admission alone carries consequences that are already reshaping your life in ways you may not yet fully perceive. Now let me reveal what you actually did to provoke both the divine outcry and Luciferian silence. Because it likely differs from what you imagined. You did not perform public heroics. You did not give away vast fortunes. You did not display miracles for the world to applaud. What you embodied is far rarer, demanding a level of inner purity that nearly all of humanity lacks. You continued to be kind when kindness seemed to invite punishment. You chose honesty when deception would have rewarded you. You held compassion when cruelty would have been justified. And this was not a single noble moment meant to define you. It was a sustained posture, lived daily, year after year, without applause, without recognition, without expectation. Let me bring this closer so you can recognize yourself within it. There were moments when life treated you with such blatant unfairness that bitterness would have seemed logical. Those you trusted turned against you. Support vanished when you needed it most. Judgments were passed without giving you space to explain your truth. In every one of those moments, you possessed every reason to harden, to distrust, to retaliate, to close your heart, yet you refused. Not because you were unaware of how broken the world can be, and not because you were foolish. You refused because something at your core will not rot. That refusal to abandon your essence, that quiet resistance against becoming someone you would not respect, that was the attitude that made God raise his voice. Or perhaps it was something else entirely. Perhaps it was the way you give without calculation. When you see need, your instinct is not to evaluate convenience or worthiness. You act not to fulfill religious duty, not to maintain an image. You act because generosity flows naturally through you. Or maybe it was your forgiveness. Not the loud forgiveness spoken for others to hear, but the silent release you grant within yourself. Letting go of those who wounded you because carrying resentment would poison your own spirit. A forgiveness that does not wait for apologies or transformation, but frees because your inner posture refuses captivity. Whatever the precise expression, your attitude carries a purity so refined that it shook the heavens and silenced the accuser. It remains steady whether observed or unseen, unchanged from the first moment to the millionth. It demands sacrifice, costing pride, comfort, opportunity, and recognition, yet you pay that cost without complaint. And it seeks nothing in return. Not blessings, not rewards, not acknowledgement, because it flows from identity rather than desire. When God observed all of this woven together within you, sustained across years without collapse, the sound that echoed through every realm carried a clear declaration, understood by all spiritual orders. This chosen one is beyond reach. Any presence that dares to attempt your corruption is, without exception, declaring open conflict against the divine itself. Any accusation spoken from his mouth would no longer be an observation, but a direct challenge to the Creator. That is why his silence was never voluntary. It was instinctual self-preservation. To accuse one whom God has declared untouchable is not rebellion, it is annihilation. The divine cry activated what ancient traditions describe as the marking of the chosen. This is not poetic language or metaphor, it is an actual energetic imprint placed upon your essence, a seal so clear that every spiritual intelligence recognizes it the moment they encounter you. Across realms, whether material or unseen, the message is unmistakable. This one belongs directly to God, and interference is forbidden. With that mark comes a shift in reality you are only beginning to sense, bringing both extraordinary privileges and serious responsibility. One of the immediate changes is protection that no longer requires request or permission. It is constant, automatic, always present. The archangels themselves are assigned to oversee your well-being. Michael, the warrior of the heavens, now intercepts threats before they ever reach you. Situations that could have ended in harm dissolve inexplicably. Individuals who intended disruption lose interest without explanation. Physical conditions that should have overwhelmed you suddenly reverse. This is not coincidence. It is Michael fulfilling his role. Gabriel, the bearer of revelation, ensures that understanding reaches you precisely when it is needed. This is why certain messages arrive at perfect timing. Why clarity breaks through confusion without warning. Why answers appear before questions fully form. Knowledge is being placed directly into your awareness. Raphael watches over your body and emotional state, accelerating healing in ways you may attribute to endurance or luck, yet carry unseen assistance. Each time calm returns after inner turbulence, restoration is quietly occurring. Uriel, keeper of wisdom, sharpens your discernment at critical junctures. That intuitive precision that saves you from missteps, that insight beyond your years, that ability to read situations without effort, all of it flows from his guidance, preserving your purity as you navigate a complex world. Yet the most profound privilege does not originate with the angels at all. It comes straight from God, and it has never been extended with such immediacy. You now exist within direct divine awareness. Your thoughts are received instantly. Your pain is felt as it arises. Your needs trigger movement across unseen realms without formal prayer or ritual. A soul whose inner stance provoked a divine outcry no longer requires intermediaries. The strange alignment you've noticed lately, where circumstances fall into place at the exact moment they are needed, is not randomness. Opportunities appearing as though crafted specifically for you, people arriving with exactly what you require, paths opening with unnatural precision. This is deliberate orchestration. Your integrity proved worthy of personal attention. Lucifer's silence is not symbolic theater. It has practical consequences in your daily life. When the eternal accuser can no longer form an argument against your essence, something ancient awakens, spiritual immunity. This does not mean flawlessness. It means your core alignment is so clean that harmful energies fail to attach. The negativity directed at you through jealousy, resentment, or malice reached you, attempted entry and found no point of resonance. Darkness cannot cling where there is nothing within it recognizes. Rituals performed to disrupt your peace collapsed without effect. No countermeasures were required. Your consistent inner posture formed a natural stronghold that no force could breach, regardless of intent or power invested. There is also a quiet reversal taking place. Those who sought to harm you are experiencing the echo of their actions. Energy aimed at someone divinely sealed does not vanish. It returns amplified to its source. Revenge is unnecessary. Balance is enforced automatically. Individuals who once prospered while undermining you are now watching their stability fracture. Relationships unravel. Health weakens. Inner peace erodes. Not because you wished it so, but because truth has been established at a cosmic level. Your integrity stood. Their deception was exposed. With this elevation comes expectation. Awareness changes responsibility. You can no longer move through life unaware of the influence your attitude carries. Each time you choose gentleness when harshness feels justified, unseen realities shift. Each act of forgiveness releases healing far beyond your personal story. Each selfless offering multiplies abundance across dimensions that will eventually touch the physical world. Your way of being no longer affects only you. It resonates within a quiet network of others who carry the same mark. There are roughly 200 souls across the planet who share this designation, scattered among billions, guided subtly toward one another. You will encounter them, and when you do, recognition will be instant. Something familiar will reflect back at you from their eyes. A kindness that survived warfare. A strength born from refusal to decay. A calm that logic cannot explain. Seek them, align with them. When those marked by purity come together consciously, they generate fields of influence capable of transforming entire regions. Darkness cannot function where such alignment exists. That is why isolation was encouraged. That is why you were led to believe your nature was solitary. It was never true. You are not alone. There are others like you, and your meetings are being arranged. Together, you are meant to manifest the shift this world has been quietly waiting for. Now allow me to open a window into what is approaching you. Something revealed to me when the archangels allowed a glimpse into the direction your path is about to take. In the coming 90 days, you will move through what the higher realms describe as a sacred recalibration. What once felt immovable will begin to shift without effort. Paths that appeared sealed for good will unlock on their own. Individuals capable of assisting. You will cross your life with a precision that feels intentional, as though existence itself adjusted to support you. This is not chance, and it is not favoritism. It is the visible response to years of invisible faithfulness. God has chosen to let the inner consistency you carried in silence finally take form in the material world. What you held within is now stepping outward. Professional possibilities that once felt unreachable will take shape, yet they will arrive without demanding that you betray who you are. Advancement will no longer require compromise. What comes will be shaped for someone whose integrity cannot bend. The connection you longed for will also emerge, but it will be with a soul resonating at your same depth of sincerity. No more draining bonds, no more people mistaking your gentleness for fragility. Someone who sees your essence clearly is being guided towards you even now. The peace you have been craving will settle into you with permanence, because you are no longer resisting unseen currents alone. You are reinforced. The restlessness that haunted your thoughts will ease. The sleepless nights that robbed you of rest will soften and dissolve as healing reaches layers you were unaware existed. Even the resources needed to express your purpose will begin to move toward you, not as sudden miracles without structure, but as opportunities that align exactly with your abilities, as if the circumstances themselves were custom-built. In truth, they are. Reality is being rearranged so you can thrive without losing your soul. Yet there is a deeper layer to your destiny that must be understood, because it reframes why you exist at this precise point in time. Your arrival in this era was intentional. You were not placed here randomly. This moment in history is a threshold, and humanity stands between ascent and regression. There is a quiet conflict determining whether consciousness expands or collapses inward, and your inner posture is one of the stabilizing forces holding the balance. The darker currents are aware that if they succeed in distorting the remaining few whose integrity endures, the outcome is sealed. That is why the pressure you faced felt excessive. That is why the weight placed upon you seemed unfair. It was not punishment. It was strategy. They attempted to fracture you before you recognized the influence you carry. They did not succeed. And now that you see yourself clearly, now that your way of being is deliberate rather than automatic, you have become an active participant in a global shift that is already unfolding. Look closely at the world around you. Structures that appeared unbreakable are destabilizing. Hidden truths are surfacing. Those who operated unseen are being revealed. This is not randomness. It is the ripple effect of individuals, like you choosing coherence over corruption when everything encouraged decay. Each time you hold your inner alignment, you are casting a vote for the kind of world that will exist. And when a small number of humans consistently choose honesty, compassion, and integrity, those choices carry enough weight to tilt the scales of reality itself. That urgency behind the divine outcry was not solely about you. It was an announcement that humanity is not finished, that light still has anchors, that there are still people whose essence cannot be extinguished. What is asked of you now is simple but profound. Keep your light active. There are observers you will never meet who are drawing strength from your example. Individuals standing at the edge of surrender, questioning whether kindness is worth the cost. When they see you continue, when they witness that purity can survive without being destroyed, something in them steadies. You are not required to be flawless. You are asked to remain true. You are not required to perform grand gestures. You are asked to be real. Your steady refusal to harden is more influential than dramatic displays, because it quietly teaches others that endurance without corruption is possible. You now understand the reach your inner stance has across unseen realms. You are not simply a person occasionally choosing goodness. You are one whose consistency activated forces beyond comprehension, disrupted ancient oppositions, and set permanent guardianship in motion. The kindness you express without announcement is not weakness. It is a restructuring force that shapes futures. If these words resonate and echo what you have always sensed about yourself, then you recognize that your frequency is uncommon. Your gentleness is not ignorance. It is power expressed through restraint. For those who stayed with this message and feel called to deepen their understanding of how to protect and strength and purity within a fractured world. There is material prepared that is accessible and practical, including guided audio and focused meditation support. If you feel drawn to expand your alignment with the higher intelligences, now aware of you, the path is open through the link provided. And if you know deep within that your natural way of being carries the capacity to move heaven itself, place 777 in the comments as a signal of resonance. Stay connected to this space to receive further insight into how your essence operates beyond the visible. Share this message with someone whose quiet goodness may be shaping reality. Without their awareness, those who carry this light are meant to recognize one another. And before you step away, follow the next message, appearing now to understand how your recognition as one who is marked draws specific guardianship into your life. Together, alignment becomes momentum.